My guest today is a stage and screen icon with too many amazing performances to mention here and now. But here are a few. He originated the role of the MC in Cabaret, winning a Tony and an Oscar, and was a part of the original cast of the current Broadway smashes Chicago and Wicked. He can currently be seen in the Roundabout Theater production revival of The Cherry Orchard. Happy to see you, Joel Grey.
Thank you. What about Anything Goes?
And Anything Goes. I mean, I just said there's
much.
too many. Anything Goes was fabulous. Anything else I should just, like, I don't...
No, that's
okay.
it.
Anything Goes. Sutton
You're
Foster.
there.
Loved it. I was there. I loved it. Hi. How are you?
Great to see you.
So great to see you. Thank you so much for coming in. Okay, let me just start. I'm a little late to the party on this. Master of Ceremonies. This book actually came out in
about a year ago.
Okay. I dug into it, and I did it in a really interesting way. I actually listened to your audio. I didn't read it. I listened to your audio book. Have you listened to your audio? I guess there's no reason why you would.
Well, the truth of the matter is I started working on the audio, and I stopped, and I said, I don't think I can do this.
Wow, interesting. Why? It was just too much?
It was just very upsetting.
But you got through it. That was you. That was not an impersonator.
Then I came in and the next day and said, well, I said I'd do it, so I better do it.
Well, I'm glad you did it because it was actually a really amazing experience. I was going on a road trip this weekend, and I thought, I'm going to bring Joel with me. And I've had your voice in my head now for days. So it's nice. I feel very close to you, even though, you know, we're not that close. But I feel like I know you really well.
I was sitting in the car with you.
You went on a long road trip with me. You've always been kind of a tough nut for me to crack. You're a very private guy. You seem like a very sort of to yourself guy, and so interesting to have the experience of basically having you tell me all these deep personal things about yourself that were hard to say. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. So bravo on the audiobook.
Thank you.
In addition to the book itself. And then I finally, after I listened to the whole audiobook, I said, well, now I want to look at the photos. So then I dug into all the photos, and amazing, really, really beautiful work. How do you feel now with this this memoir out there?
Perfect.
Just perfect. It is what it is. It's out.
Yeah, it's who I am.
Why did you want to write that book? Where did that come from?
I'd always wanted to. All my life I was making notes, and because I think there was always a struggle of one sort or another. You're too short, you're too Jewish, you're too whatever. You're a singer, you're an actor, you're not a dancer, you're whatever. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of things to overcome. That takes a lot of energy. So I was at it, at looking at how do I get through this? How do I come out the other side and in joy? And because I have been. I mean, these past 10, 15 years, 20 years have been different because I've just been much more myself.
You're basically talking about since your marriage ended. And
yes.
And you started, well, the big reveal of the book is that you came out of the closet in your 80s. That was the big event. That was the People magazine headline. And is it a total yawn?
No, it's not. It was a big deal.
I guess I've always sort of thought you were gay. I don't know. I know your work. I've met you on red carpets, and it's crossed my mind before. You've obviously played some amazing characters that have, played along with a lot of that, starting with the MC. You were also in The Normal Heart, and you co-directed The Normal Heart, and you have a lot of sort of great ties to things like that.
Humanity.
Yeah, okay, right. But to hear your story, I guess I maybe thought one thing about your story, but actually hear you tell your story, it's very powerful to think about someone who grew up when you grew up and how you grew up. And sort of the weight of all of that. And it's very easy. It's very easy to just sort of say, like, well, why hasn't he come out?
The shame just went with living.
Yeah.
If you were hiding or if you were confused or whatever, there is shame to that, and shame is so devastating.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
What kind of things excite you? Like what makes you want to do a show? Like what sort of gets you into a theater to do something now? Do you just love any theatrical challenge? I mean, you seem like such a true theater person.
In the past couple of years, I've said, I don't want to do a long run. I want to do something with an ensemble of actors.
Check.
Where we can be telling a story.
Yeah.
And this came.
And that's a great group of people.
At just the right time.
Yeah. What's Diane Lane like?
So nice.
Yeah.
Lovely. So beautiful, and she's just wonderful in the part, and she's fun.
So who else do you get to play
Celia
with?
Keenan-Bolger.
We love Celia Keenan-Bolger, yes. She sat in that chair.
And John Glover.
John Glover, yeah.
I was in a play with him before, the Brian Friel play, Give Me Your Answer Due.
That's right. It's hard to keep track of all your credits. You have a lot of credits. You know, even when I was getting ready for this, I went, and that one, and that one. And, you know, even when you hear the book, I almost said read the book. I heard the book, you know, and then you're talking about these great theatrical experiences, and it's like, oh, and then, you know, Wicked is just like mentioned in passing, like, oh yeah, Wicked, you know, in Chicago, and, you know, all these. It must make you, what's it like to walk around the theater district and go like, oh, I was a part of that, and
Actually, I just did a tape that people can buy and listen to your
like
tour.
a walking tour?
A walking tour
Oh, how
of
fun.
Broadway.
Did you tell little stories?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
What was it like when you got into Wicked? Robert Morse played the role out of town.
Right, in San Francisco.
Right, they did it in San Francisco. Dina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth did it in San Francisco. And you came in for Broadway, and it was sort of like this huge show coming in. Nobody really knew if it was going to click. I mean, it was really a big gamble.
Right.
Huge gamble at the time. Did it feel like a gamble to you, or did it feel like...
No, I thought that the women were just incredible.
Yeah.
And I thought the songs were so accessible. They had come to me when they were just putting it together a few years before, and I didn't think that the character was filled out enough.
The Wizard.
The
You
Wizard.
played the Wizard in that other Wizard of Oz. I remember I saw you. There was that TV Wizard of Oz. Yeah, you have a history with the Wizard.
Yes, Nathan
Wizardry.
was the Cowardly Lion.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. That was fun. Okay, so they thought of you originally.
And I said, you know, it doesn't seem like there's a full character there.
Right.
So they wrote another song, and they gave me a dance number. So it just kind of came together.
Yeah. What was it like watching what happened to Kristen and Adina? I mean, because it really, I mean, Adina especially sort of exploded from Wicked, right? I mean, it was sort of to a whole other level. But what was it like watching sort of it become such a girl thing, and to, you know, they have that bond forever, right? I mean, they're sort of glued together. From Wicked.
For better or worse.
Yeah, they're glued. They are. Yeah. For better or for worse, they're going to have to sit down for reunion photographs every once in a while. Now, Chicago is also celebrating another anniversary. I mean, it's always
20.
like, it's always time to celebrate another Chicago anniversary.
And November 20th is the 50th anniversary of Cabaret.
Oh, my God. I forgot that. Wow, look at that. Well, let's talk about Cabaret. You actually got sort of asked to be in Cabaret, right? You were...
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't audition for it.
No, it was
You knew
Hal's
Hal Prince,
idea.
you knew Candor and Ebb, and they like invited you over and said, we're playing our new show, right? So what was that? Tell me about that moment.
I loved that score, loved that world that they were going to look at.
Yeah.
And I needed to find a full-blooded character because there was no book
Right.
for him.
Right.
He didn't get to say anything, and it was all in the numbers.
Your wife said, you were like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Right.
Like, because you originally, I don't know if people know this, but one thing I thought was really fascinating is that originally all the MC's songs were just all together. The
Yes,
top of
in
Act Two.
one number, right.
It was like that was sort of the performance part of the
Right.
show instead of being interspersed. So we'll talk about a very different kind of role and a different experience instead of sort of commanding the entire night.
But it grew and it came, and you know, I remembered that crappy MC I saw.
Yeah, you talked about that. Yeah, like a bad comedian, basically, like
so all the bad stuff
real
about
a-hole.
him, everything.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to put it on me. I was so
Put all that on this nice guy, and make that MC. Make this guy right here. Look at that.
Yes. And I was so embarrassed to do it. And then Hal came and said, that's it.
Right.
So I was happily stuck.
Yeah. And it did feel like a risk to do that on stage?
Yeah. What if people thought that was me? Right?
Yeah. And it obviously worked out. That turned into quite a thing. It turned into a title
it turned
of a book.
into a good thing.
Okay, so tell me about the it's Joel Grey or me moment. I love that quote with Bob Fosse. So years later, like but a few 4
or 5 years
right,
later,
the movie was happening, and Bob Fosse got his talent attached to it, and he sort of didn't want anything from the Broadway production.
Right. He wanted to recreate the whole thing.
Right. So you were just like, well, I'm out. This is not going to be one of those moments where somebody gets to recreate their great role.
I wasn't that relaxed about it.
I'm sure. Yeah, you don't actually sound relaxed about you. You sound sort of when you hear about your career, it sounds like there's a lot of
Angst.
a lot of angst about
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you still have that?
No, I have a lot more fun now.
I love it. Why not? So what happened? So what was that meeting? What was the Joel Grey or me?
Well, it created a very difficult working relationship.
Because the producers wanted you to do it.
Yes.
Right. And Bob Fosse did not.
And they overruled him.
And he literally said,
"It never happens."
And he said, "It's Joel Grey or me," and they said, "We want Joel Grey." That's just amazing.
He was stuck.
That's crazy. I mean, that's.
I know.
Did you know that meeting happened right away? Did you know that you were going into rehearsal, knowing all that?
Yeah.
With somebody who's already a big personality.
Right.
That's crazy. I can't even imagine like the pressure of that.
Yeah.
And it was also like pretty close to production too.
Yeah.
It
Weeks.
was like last minute. They were just going to figure out who was going to play the MC. And one thing I thought was really interesting, you speculated in your book that maybe he wanted to play the MC.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting to think about that.
He would have been good too.
Yeah, it's really sort of a fascinating thing to think about. But
I don't think he even knew how much he wanted to do that.
Wow.
But I'll bet it was there.
And even at that point, it wasn't like, well, now everything's great because then you filmed the movie, and the first cut of it, you were like, your role was cut down to like nothing, basically.
Right.
I mean, it's just, people assume these paths are a lot smoother than they really are in reality.
If I'm not going to do it, neither is he.
Right. Right. I mean, it's crazy. So crazy. You talk in your book about you used to do a comedy routine. Like one of your first comedy things, your father was
right.
Your father was a very famous comedian.
Yiddish comedian.
You talked about doing a bit where you were you were a teenager, I think, and you used to do a routine where you would talk about recent events as if they were a long time.
Oh yeah.
Well, how would that go? So I was interested about that. That sounds like a really funny concept to me.
I sort of remembered that song.
Oh, there's a song attached to it?
Yes. Do you remember? Please notice a tear in my eye. Do you remember in the dear old days gone by when, what is it? When Ali said he'd die for Rita, Ali Khan, Rita Hayworth. It must have been as long ago as 1949.
Right.
So I was.
It was all about like
not having nostalgia.
Yeah, nostalgia about something that just happened like a year before. It's a great idea. Were you a natural up there?
Performing was comfortable,
Yeah.
but in a nightclub it was hell. I hated it because I'm a theater baby.
Right. Okay. So
I'm used to an audience.
Right.
Stage.
Yeah.
And quiet.
Yeah, but when you were a kid, you did all that at the Cleveland Playhouse, right?
Yes.
That was sort of like your big introduction, and that must have been just like a really happy escape. You got your opportunities.
I was in the right spot.
Then you started getting rave reviews when you were a kid. Spoiled, a career of it.
It's all right. I got unspoiled pretty quick.
So what was Broadway like in the '60s? Because you really, I mean, obviously
Pretty
Cabaret
exciting.
was huge, huh?
Pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Robert Redford was playing across the street in Barefoot in the Park.
When you were doing which one?
Come Blow Your Horn.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so they were both playing. Yeah, Neil Simon always had more than one show. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That was the thing back then. What do you think are your, like, greatest onstage moments? There's YouTube now, right? We have YouTube videos of things. So there's YouTube of you doing Anything
They're all
Goes
on there.
with Sutton Foster. There's a lot of video of that out there. It's a whole new world, right?
Winning the Tony is on there.
Yeah. That's great. It's great to have
In
on there.
1967.
Do you like looking at that?
Love it.
Yeah.
It was like my dream. And the Oscar. Those were both as good as one expects. Is that possible?
Yeah.
And maybe better.
Yeah. And are you able in those moments to sort of live in the moment?
I think so.
Yeah. and sort of enjoy it for what it is in the moment. I mean, that's a hard thing to do. I think a lot of people get sort of stuck in the rush of everything.
No, I was really happy.
There are a lot of photos of you on Oscar night, and you're just beaming. And I love looking at those photos of you. You're just like aglow. I love it.
It was pretty good.
Another Broadway memory I want to talk about was I was really interested in Larry Kurt, your relationship with Larry Kurt. And I mean, you had a romantic relationship with him. But what I was actually interested in was the fact that you went to watch a run-through of West Side Story. So you watched Cabaret, an early version of that, and you watched...
And a run-through of Gypsy.
And Gypsy.
Without costumes.
God, if we could just transport ourselves into moments you've had in your life. Gypsy without costumes and West Side Story.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing. You're like a nugget of history. There should be like a Joel Grey virtual reality headset. We could
Joel
just
Grey nugget.
Or not. Back to the being in the closet, or I don't know if you want to. Do you consider yourself in the closet? I mean, that's sort of a weird term, I guess. You were just living your life.
Yep.
But like, so when you did something like The Normal Heart, you were placed in the original production of The Normal Heart off Broadway, and I've heard amazing things about that performance. And you say that when you were in that show, that's when you were actually on stage saying words as a gay man. It's really interesting to hear how you sort of tie roles with places in your life at the time of doing the role. Even like Amos in Chicago, you sort of tied that in with the way you described sort of that character and what you thought it was and how it actually...
You really listened, didn't you?
Oh, I really listened to you. I'm telling you. You're in my head still. So talk about the Amos Hart thing, because that's sort of a role that you could easily just say, well, he's just the guy, the guy
I said no.
Yeah, you turned it down, and somebody said, you're crazy.
Because, I mean, I couldn't see it the way it was originally.
Yeah.
And it was also Fosse's show.
Right. Yeah.
And Walter Bobby and Anne Reinking and I talked about a whole other way of looking at Amos, not like a big dumb mechanic.
Yeah.
But like a great lover who loved her so much, it didn't care.
So when you did The Normal Heart, you say that was your first time standing on stage, actually saying the words of a gay man. Like you were sort of like speaking. It was extremely personal for you, even if that was...
And it was a very dangerous show at that time.
Yeah.
It was like being in an intensive care unit.
But I always wonder, what was your relationship like with Larry Kramer? Larry Kramer is obviously a very political guy. And I actually remember when you directed the Broadway production of The Normal Heart, which was stunning, I remember at that time thinking, Joel Grey, I don't know if he's out. I don't know if he's gay. I don't know. That's when it came up for me, because I thought he's directing The Normal Heart. And then I thought, well, what is Larry Kramer, someone who's so political like that?
Right.
Did he have an opinion about you or your life?
Yeah, well, he chose me.
He chose you. Originally, you mean, for the off-Broadway.
And then he gave me the permission to direct it in California.
Yeah.
And to direct this benefit at the Walter Kerr.
The book really made me a lot more sympathetic about your story. It really did. It made me, because it's very easy, like I said, to just say, why hasn't he said anything to anyone? And
oh, you're one of those.
Well,
well, the truth is out.
Am I one of those? I don't know if I'm one of those. I'm being honest about it.
I'm glad.
Yeah. It's easy to say it was another time and to think you understand someone's life, but I guess to actually read your entire life and to go and to soak it in year by year.
People were just being killed, murdered, exposed, taken to jail,
arrested, and then
it was a dangerous life.
Yeah, to be open with yourself and with the world at that point.
Yeah.
Yes, it was definitely a very different life. And I'm sure you knew people who were out of the closet and people who were in the same situation as you.
I did.
And maybe you still do. You know what I mean? From your generation.
I do.
Yeah, you still do know people like that.
So we're afraid.
Yeah.
Still.
There's still that fear. Yeah, well, I'm glad you did this. I really am. And it's a beautiful book, and you should be really proud of it. It's definitely something.
I'm grateful.
Grateful. How are your kids?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter just flew in today. She's on a show called Red Oaks.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So they're coming in to do press.
I love your daughter. It's so funny, isn't it weird that so many people have such a connection to your daughter because of like Dirty Dancing and Ferris Bueller? I mean, it's such a like
Yes,
amazing.
we loved that character.
Yeah.
And her.
Yeah, exactly.
Baby.
What was it like to watch her go through that? Because I know you were wary of her becoming an actress at first. What was it like to watch that moment happen to her? I mean, I just can't imagine as a parent what it was like watching that.
Well, in a way, it was powerful because she seemed to know what she's doing and to be accepted and respected. But she was still in this very difficult business.
Right, right.
And you want to protect your kids.
Yeah.
You can't.
So that's that hard to watch her have to deal with the business in that way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's great that you guys are so close. I wish she would come back to Broadway. She did one Broadway show. Mm-hmm. But do you think she would ever do Broadway again?
Never.
Never?
That's what she says.
Oh, come on.
I'll tell her.
Yeah, tell her. Jennifer Grey, we want you back. No, I think that'd be great. Maybe you guys do something together. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? Would you ever like?
And the interesting thing is the play she was in.
Yeah.
Was about
Twilight
being
of the
gay.
Golds. Oh my God, you're right. Yeah, that's right. Was it
Not
about
her?
What was it? It was about a couple. It was Jonathan Tolan's, right?
Yeah.
And it was about was it a gay couple?
Yeah.
Having a kid, adopting a kid. It was like so. It was so ahead of its time. And by that point,
And it was not well received.
right? I know, but it was like
It
one of
was
those.
pretty good too.
Yeah, but yeah, and at that point, she already knew about your life by the '80s, by the late '80s, or who knows? Yeah.
How much do you know and do you take in?
Yeah.
You know.
Does it mean something though I saw when your People magazine article came out telling the world you were gay, that there was also like they have a comment from her saying how supportive what she what is it like to see things like that in print, to see that your story is out there and that your daughter comments on the story? I don't know, it's so public in an interesting way. If people need that comment.
I'm in the public eye.
Right.
And she is.
Right.
You got to take it.
Yeah. So we're going to keep seeing you do, you're in the Cherry Orchard through December 4th. You're going to stick around Broadway, we can keep seeing you do more shows?
If I found another short run of interesting, powerful material, or even funny.
Yeah, I would love that.
And short.
Short runs. Are you still taking photographs?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have 4 books.
Wow.
And I'm working on a 5th.
When you do creating books, are you doing it around particular themes, or are you?
Yeah.
Okay. So like, what are you photographing now?
Sexy flowers.
Sexy flowers? These are fake. Don't photograph these. Thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure when you're on Broadway. And honestly, to have your voice in my ear was wonderful. I recommend, thank you for the handshake. I always like a handshake.
Give me a good one.
A good one.
There we are.
Thank you, Joel. Everyone, check out the Cherry Orchard, the American Airlines Theater on 42nd Street. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.